Yeah, all right. Good afternoon to all of you. Tomorrow, my guest will be our friend David Nanopoulos, who, as you know, is the head of the treaty section in the Department of Legal Affairs. He will brief you on the annual treaty event, and this year's theme, 80 Years of Multilateral Treaty Making at the United Nations. The event will be held from the 23rd to the 26th here at headquarters. Also want to flag to you an external briefing tomorrow at 10 a.m. There will be a briefing at Press Island on the security issues related to the GA, and that's a briefing you get almost every year. You can expect the head of the NYPD, the head of the Secret Service in New York, as well as the Department of State Security and our own head of UN Security, and there may be other officials from the city of New York present. That'll be at 10 a.m. on Press Island. This morning we issued a statement on Colombia in which the Secretary General welcomed the issuance by Colombia's Special Jurisdiction for Peace of its first restorative sentences, which is a historic milestone in the implementation of the final peace agreement of 2016. The Secretary General took note of the court's announcement that these sentences for former commanders of the FARC-EP will be followed later this week by the first sentences for former members of the public security forces. The Secretary General noted that this is the first sentences of the Special Jurisdiction for Peace mark a key step forward for the innovative mechanisms of transitional justice in the agreement, which seeks to foster truth, ensure accountability, and for the most serious crimes committed during Colombia's armed conflict, as well as to provide redress to the victims. The Secretary General stresses that these decisions should be implemented in full and translated into actions of reparations on behalf of the victims. He called on all sentenced individuals to maintain their commitment to peace by fully complying with their sentences, and for the Colombian governmental and state authorities to ensure that all conditions are in place for the sentences to be carried out. The United Nations, including through our verification mission on the ground, is mandated to verify compliance and implementation of the sentences, remains firmly committed to supporting Colombia in its pursuit of lasting peace, justice, and reconciliation. Turning to the situation in Gaza, which, as you all know, is worsening by the hour, our colleagues at the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs continue to call for the immediate protection of civilians. Issuing displacement orders does not absolve the parties to a conflict from their responsibilities to protect civilians in the conduct of hostilities. Today, the Israeli army once again ordered people to leave Gaza City within the next 48 hours and move south along a temporary passageway on the Salah ad-Din road, which is the one that runs through the center of the Gaza Strip. Thousands of people continue to flee amid active hostilities. Roads, as you can well imagine and as you've seen, are congested, people are hungry, and children are traumatized. Between Monday and yesterday, our partners monitoring the movements of people in Gaza recorded nearly 40,000 displacements to the south since mid-August, and as of yesterday, some 200,000 movements have been recorded, with many women, children, and older people walking for hours. OCHA was informed by the Ministry of Health in Gaza that the Rantisi Children's Hospital in Gaza City was damaged after being struck multiple times overnight. There were 80 patients in the facility, including 12 children and babies in intensive care. Half of the patients and their caregivers were forced to flee under fire in search of elusive safety. Meanwhile, the UN Population Fund warns that Israel's offensive in Gaza is forcing women to give birth in the streets without hospitals, without doctors, and clean water. UNFPA said 23,000 women in Gaza are going without care, and about 15 babies are born each week without any medical help. Our humanitarian partners tell us that since the collapse of the ceasefire in March, 80 medical points and primary health care centers providing sexual and reproductive health outpatient services have been affected. 65% of those are out of service. And today, the Palestinian telecommunications company reported that complete internet outage across Gaza City and the north. This is preventing people and humanitarians from receiving critical information. Our partners have set up 3 support points in areas to receive displaced people in southern Gaza to assist separated people, orphaned and injured children. They report that heavy bombardments in Gaza City is further fueling people's distress, especially among children. Later, yesterday, 2 humanitarian movements to collect food and cargo from crossings into Gaza were either canceled or denied. Other missions were facilitated but faced impediments on the ground. The Zikim crossing remains closed for a 5th consecutive day. A quick update from southern Lebanon, where peacekeeping colleagues tell us that since the cessation of hostilities, thousands of violations of Security Council Resolution 1701 have continued. Every day, the peacekeepers patrol the Blue Line, monitor and report all violations impartially, and support the Lebanese armed forces in their full deployment. Yesterday, our blue helmets found rocket launchers in Dar Amis in Sector West as they continue to discover unauthorized weapons and ammunition caches, as well as unexploded ordnance in the mission's area of operations. These weapons are all, the caches are all then given over to the Lebanese armed forces. The peacekeepers are also continuing to observe Israeli Defense Force military activities in the area of operations, including yesterday's direct fire from an Israeli position south of the Blue Line, impacting an area in Markaba in Sector East. And yesterday, IDF troops pointed green lasers at peacekeepers inside UNIFIL position in Sector West. Separately, local individuals in Sector East pelted stones at UNIFIL patrol. We reiterate that any intimidation or interference from any quarter of UNIFIL's work must stop. And just to illustrate our ongoing support for the Lebanese armed forces, the UN peacekeeping mission handed over more than 100 vehicles yesterday and other pieces of equipment. The head of mission, Major General Diodato Abanyara, said the donation will significantly enhance the Lebanese armed forces' mobility, security, and operational response, and reinforce state authority in the UNIFIL area of operation. This week, off the coast of Beirut, the Maritime Task Force of UNIFIL conducted training exercises with the Lebanese Navy and Air Force to enhance the Lebanese Army's capabilities to conduct maritime operations independently. UNIFIL peacekeepers also conducted a training with Lebanese Army personnel focusing on operations, leadership, and coordination. And moving to Sudan, a quick update on the activities on the Secretary General's personal envoy, Ramtan Lamamra. He has concluded his visit to Port Sudan, which followed consultations in Nairobi with Kenyan and Sudanese contacts. Both in Sudan and Nairobi, Mr. Lamamra held very constructive engagements with Sudanese stakeholders across the spectrum. In Port Sudan, personal envoy held talks with Prime Minister Camille Idris and members of his cabinet. He also met with civilian political actors, civil society, representatives of women's group, and members of the diplomatic corps in Port Sudan. The visit forms part of an effort to lay the complex groundwork necessary to support an inclusive peace process that can deliver a sustainable solution that preserves Sudan's sovereignty, unity, and territorial integrity. During all his meetings, he said he strongly encouraged all the interlocutors to engage in an inclusive and comprehensive dialogue aimed at advancing concrete steps towards a peaceful and united Sudan. A quick but sad update from our peacekeeping mission in the Central African Republic. Yesterday morning, an armored personnel carrier overturned on the Ombela and Poko River just before crossing a bridge northwest of Bangui. The vehicle was part of a five-car convoy. Today, the body of a member of the foreign police unit from the Republic of Congo was retrieved from the sunken vehicle. 4 other personnel remain missing. 2 others were injured and evacuated to Bangui in stable condition. Rescue teams immediately deployed, and we're continuing the operations as we speak. We are, of course, working to determine the circumstances of this accident. Turning to Afghanistan, from the humanitarian front, regarding the ongoing rescue efforts following the earthquake, our humanitarian colleagues tell us that some 103,000 people have been reached with food aid, with more vulnerable groups receiving specialized nutrition support. More than 27,000 people have provided with drinking water, and 3,400 families have gotten emergency shelter material. Aid workers have carried out joint humanitarian assessments in nearly a third of more than the 400 villages impacted by earthquakes. They report that in the areas they have reached so far, more than 6,300 homes have been destroyed, nearly 2,200 damaged. Thousands of families in these villages are sheltering out in the open, exposed to the elements, with most having lost their household belongings, including blankets and clothes. OCHA points out that the earthquakes have taken a heavy toll on water and sanitation infrastructure, with more than 130 water sources reportedly damaged or destroyed in the area, where humanitarians have carried out assessments. Given severe shortages of essential hygiene and sanitation items, our humanitarian partners are deeply concerned about the risk of waterborne disease outbreaks, including cholera, which is already endemic in the region. Our humanitarian colleagues stress the additional support for response efforts are urgently needed, as outlined in the humanitarian appeal launched last week. And as the Secretary General emphasized very clearly yesterday, and as Tom Fletcher did the day before, female humanitarian workers are absolutely indispensable to our response. It is intolerable that they're coming under pressure and facing further challenges as they try to carry out their critical work. And also in Afghanistan this morning, the Security Council heard from Rozan Otunbayeva, the special representative of the UN and head of the mission in Kabul. She told Security Council members via video conference that the situation, this was her last briefing to the Council, as she will be leaving. She said that she spent the past 3 years advocating for engagement with the de facto authorities based on the mandate given to us by the Security Council, stressing that the development of Afghanistan's full potential is required for the country to address the multiple and simultaneous crises that it is facing. Her remarks were shared with you. Quick update on Ukraine, where our humanitarian colleagues tell us that 2 humanitarian workers were injured and a humanitarian vehicle damaged in a drone strike in the Kherson region. Our humanitarian colleagues note that this latest attack, which happened earlier this week, underscores a worrying trend. Between January and August, at least 7 aid workers were killed and 44 injured across Ukraine, with Kherson having seen the highest toll. The humanitarian coordinator in Ukraine, Matthew Schmale, condemned the attack, stressing that aid workers must never be a target and must be able to carry out their mission safely. Also earlier this week, our partners reached a rural settlement in the Kherson region with an interagency convoy. The community, heavily impacted by hostilities and the Kakhovka Dam destruction in 2023, received water, medical items, hygiene items, and other essential relief items for about 4,000 residents who remain behind. The operation was part of ongoing efforts to ensure civilians in hard-hit areas continue to receive assistance they urgently need. From January to August, our partners assisted nearly 180,000 people in Kherson region, including with food, water, and health care support. Over that period, 23 convoys provided critical aid to 22,000 residents who are remaining despite the insecurity, and humanitarian needs remain pressing as hostilities continue. Between yesterday and today, authorities in Ukraine reported to us several civilian casualties across the country. Homes, schools, health facilities, and energy infrastructure were damaged, leaving thousands without electricity and disrupting railway traffic in central Ukraine. Today is World Patient Safety Day. This year's theme, Patient Safety from the Start, emphasizes the urgent need to act early and consistently to prevent harm throughout childhood. Parents, caregivers, health petitioners, leaders, and communities all have a responsibility to prevent avoidable harm to build a healthier future for every child. We got money today. I got a good quiz for you. Ready? This country does not have a coastline. It is landlocked, and it has the largest navy of any landlocked country.
Hungary.
No. Sorry. No, whoa. Slow down. Not Austria, not Hungary, not Bolivia, not Mongolia, not Ethiopia. There are a lot of landlocked. It's not double landlocked, just land. Paraguay. We thank our friends in Paraguay in Asunción for their full payment to the regular budget. God knows we need it. Why?
Yeah.
Why what?
Why do they have a navy?
They have rivers, a lot of rivers. Yeah. I mean, it's what one would refer to as a brown water navy as opposed to a blue water navy. Okay. All right. Yes, David.
Quick question.
Your microphone, please. Sorry.
Hey, Steph, thanks. Quick question. Is there any update on the visa situation with the PA mission? And Brazilian reporter yesterday asked regarding the Brazilian delegation whether there was an issue there. Can you just update on
Yeah,
what is
there's
happening?
been no progress that I'm aware of on the Palestinian delegation visa issues. As we've said, this was raised a number of times with our counterparts in the U.S. government. There was also a meeting of the host country committee, I think last week, where a number of member states also raised issues, and I think a summary of that meeting should be publicly available soon if it's not already. Okay. Benno.
Follow up to this. Can you give us an overview how many delegations are affected by visa issues?
I can't because it's not as if every delegation informs us, right? So I mean, the Palestinian issue is one we're dealing with very publicly. There are others, as I've seen in the press, and I would encourage you to talk to them. Deji, and then we'll go here.
First, just an idea. Maybe next time we could host the UNGA like Olympics like every year with different cities. Maybe that's not my question. My question here. I'm sorry. On the ground operation in Gaza City, I just want to know: is there still any UN operation or people in Gaza City?
UN staff.
How's the status of them?
Challenging would be the understatement of the year.
Do they have plan to leave?
We are doing our best to keep staff in Gaza City. Obviously, the national staff are there. They're also having to worry about their own families. They're having to worry about feeding their families, about feeding themselves. And we also have some international staff who remain there.
Also including international staff?
Yes, sir.
All right. Just now you mentioned that over if I remember correctly, 40,000 people has been displaced from Gaza City. Is that voluntary movement, or do you consider that a forced movement?
Look,
or they don't have a choice?
I don't know how you can call, when you're being given horrific choices, how you can call that voluntary.
So it's a war crime?
I will let others decide what war crimes are, but it is hard to imagine that any of these movements are voluntary in the most basic definition of the word voluntary. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Asim. I'm a tech fellow and journalist from Pakistan. My question is about the Afghan refugees. Despite the humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan, Pakistan has continued to deport the Afghan refugees. Will the ESG take up the issue with Pakistani delegation in coming days?
Look, this is an issue that we have taken up with the Pakistani authorities and the Iranian authorities. Those efforts are being led by our High Commissioner for Refugees. I think in the state that Afghanistan currently is, we call on those countries that have been, generously hosting large numbers of Afghans to continue with that generosity and not force anyone to return home to a country which is in deep, deep crisis, not to mention following the earthquake. Yep. Yes, sir. Your microphone and your name, please, if you don't mind.
It's Boris Herman, Süddeutsche Zeitung.
Oh, Boris, sorry, I didn't
no
recognize you.
I just wanted to repeat the Brazilian part of the visa issue. Maybe I overheard it. Did you say something? What's the current situation with the Brazilian visas?
No, as I said, you need to, you should speak to the Brazilian mission. We understand from reports that also the Brazilians have had challenges getting their visas. The obligations under the headquarters agreement go across the board, right? They are valid for permanent missions. They're valid for permanent observer missions. They're valid with NGOs that are accredited and recognized by the United Nations, and they're valid for journalists who are accredited to these United Nations. Stefano, then Abdelhamid, then and
Thank you,
then
Stéphane.
Iraq.
Yesterday was asked to the Secretary General about his future meeting with President Trump here at the UN. He answered saying that he explained that he's thinking to talk to him about a peace mission where, because he doesn't have the, if I understood well, if he doesn't have the stick, the carrot, instead the United States has the stick, especially the stick and the carrot, then he thinks they can talk to him about that. Can you explain us a little bit better what he intended, what he wants to be working with Trump, where he's the Secretary General, though he has only a few months left, but like he will be sent to mission where he has the backup of President Trump and say, you know, if you stall.
First of all, he has more than a few months left. You know, the UN peacekeeping missions, UN political missions work when the countries in the Security Council are united, right? Especially the 5 veto-holding permanent members. You can see, looking back in history, the situation in the 90s and in the 2000s, 22nd, and how 21st century. I don't want to get ahead of myself. And how the dynamic in the Security Council directly impacts the UN's ability in peacemaking. And I think that's where the Secretary General is heading, that American involvement and participation in multilateral organization, especially this one, is important. Abdelhamid.
Thank you, Steph. As always, I ask about a few things that I expected to show in your briefing. 75 Palestinians were killed since the morning. And second, there is a family of 14 was moving from Gaza to the south. They were gunned down, all of them, 14, children, women, and elderly. And another journalist, Muhammad Ala Sawalhi, was also gunned down in Gaza. All these heinous crimes do not come in the daily.
Look,
report,
I think I share as much information as I have. There are a lot of things that are going on that we may not have direct information about. It doesn't change our position. It doesn't change the tone and I think directness in which the Secretary General answered the questions on Gaza yesterday.
Another thing, the Palestinian authorities asking UNESCO to help them in preserving the second most important holy place for Muslims in Palestine, which is the Al-Ibrahimi Mosque in Hebron. I mean, the settlers are almost...
Your microphone, please, yeah.
The Ibrahimi Mosque in Hebron, it is being now attacked by settlers taking over. They do their weddings inside that mosque. So Palestinian authorities calling on UNESCO to help. Yeah. Is the SG aware of these?
I don't know if he's aware, but I'm sure UNESCO is. Yvonne, then Islam, and then Ibtisam.
Sorry. Thanks, Steph. So my question is again about the visas, just tapping into your institutional knowledge. To what the extent of the visa denials or threats of denials this year, how does it compare to previous years? Is it to a much greater extent, or have you seen this all before?
I've seen a lot of things before.
I know.
I mean, I think an analysis of publicly available information would show you that this is probably a greater volume than we've seen in the past.
And does that therefore create a lot more concern inside the back offices here than it has done in the past?
I think we're obviously concerned. I mean, the UN headquarters is an integral part of the city of New York. It's an integral part of the ecosystem of the city of New York. But for it to work, we need to have the headquarters agreement fully implemented.
Okay, I just have another couple of quick questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Press Island is 45th Street
yes,
entrance, right?
Yeah,
okay.
It'll be where that NYPD truck has been parked all year.
Okay, and then on a completely separate issue, the Secretary General has always prioritised gender parity. to what extent is he working at this stage to ensure that his successor is a woman? And how is he doing that?
The Secretary General, I think, has often expressed the hope that he would be succeeded by a woman. But the choice of his successor is firmly in the hands of the member states. And it is their process. But we do hope that we see it. I'll leave it at that.
So he's not working.
I mean, I think the involvement of a sitting Secretary General in the choice of his successor would not always ensure the outcome that the sitting Secretary General would like to see. How about that? Islam.
Thank you, Steph. I have a question on Gaza, a little bit general. As UN is preparing next week high-level meetings on two-state solution, Israel forces, or I should say occupational forces, has intensified their operations on air and land. How does Secretary General, or how is worried that Israel actions defies the around 150 UN members with these actions? How these Israel's actions may affect next week meetings? And also, does Secretary General hope any worthy of note conclusion at the end of the week regarding two-state solution?
Well, I mean,
Thank
I
you.
think in terms, we've already seen the New York Declaration, right? The facts on the ground are the facts on the ground, right? And the Secretary General is well aware of them. He's well aware that the continuing fighting that we're seeing in Gaza, right? The continuing situation in the occupied West Bank are moving us away from the direction of a two-state solution. But we're not going to let the facts on the ground derail our efforts and our hopes to see what we want to see at some point in the future.
If I may ask different question, European Commission today has presented proposal sort of suspending some certain extent trade with Israel, also sanctioning some extremist, in quote, ministers and also some violent settlers. Would you have any comment on that?
On the on the EU decisions?
Yes,
No,
proposal.
we're not going to insert ourselves in the deliberations of the European Union. Ibtisam, then Michelle, then Sinan.
Thank you, Steph. On Gaza too, when you were talking today, you talked about evacuation orders, but actually in the past you did use the term forced displacement. I'm wondering, is there a reason why you're not using it anymore?
I wouldn't read too much into. Let me put it this way: I don't want to tell you don't pay attention to what I say. But I wouldn't read too much into that change of language. I mean, the situation is what it is. We're using different words to describe it, but it is clear that, as I told, I can't remember who asked the question about voluntary, Deji. One cannot use the term voluntary when people are given bleak choices.
And I have another two questions. The one also about Gaza. There are reports from the humanitarian organizations and people in Gaza are reporting that they have, if they have money at all, that they have to pay $700 or $1,000 for a tent. And the question is why actually...
Who do they have to pay?
In the market, like
in the public,
yes.
On the open market.
Yes, in the
right.
open market. And the question is actually why there are, if you could, I know that the UN was trying to get enough tents,
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that these are UN tents,
Yeah.
I don't know that.
Yeah.
But that there is such a possibility, and so why there is no enough tents in Gaza for people to...
Well, because not enough tents are being allowed in. I mean, the ICRC was able to get tents in. I think we were able to get some shelter in, but very, very little. And obviously, if the prices are as they are, as you report them, is also due to the fact that the commercial sector is almost dried out.
And the last question is regarding medical evacuation, but also humanitarian evacuation from Gaza. There is thousands and thousands of people who need medical evacuation because they cannot get treatment in Gaza. And we know that Israel is the party that allows this, but there are complaints that some states are not giving visas, are not helping. What is your message to...
Our message is help, right?
And
Allow those who need life-saving critical aid, who WHO has been assisting, allow them to leave and give them visas and medical help wherever they need to be. Michelle, then Sinan.
Stéphane, Zikim crossing in Gaza in the north, which has been closed now for 5 days. Did Israel give the UN any kind of...
Not that I'm aware. I mean, the closings and openings of crossings has sometimes left us without answers.
So why does the UN think it's been closed?
I mean, you have to ask those who hold the key. Sinan.
Thank you, Steph. I also have a question on visa issue, if you don't mind. As you said, there's some problems with some missions, with diplomats, they can have a visa, but on the other hand, a Syrian president, which is listed by UN as a terrorist, coming to the UN. So that raises a question, who makes decision, who can participate, UNGA, who cannot? I mean, doesn't Secretary General think that's double standard?
Look, anyone who is, any head of state or delegation, right, whose credentials are not questioned, and I don't think their credentials are questioned, should be given a visa to participate in the UN meetings, regardless of where these people are from. But we're just, like I told Michelle, we're not the ones with the keys to the crossing, and we're not the ones with the stamp that gets put in a visa, in a passport, so people can enter the U.S. to come join the UN. Benno, and then if there are any questions online, but I have to run. Go ahead.
Let me just follow up on this, the visa issue. I mean, like, what's your strategy to convince the host country to honor the headquarters agreement? I mean, like, do you have any stick in that
I think
sense?
you know that answer, that we don't. I mean, I think whether it's the host country agreement or any other treaty that member states sign on to, we expect them to honor their legal obligations.
But like, how big of a problem is it for the World Organization when you have problems hosting a summit because the host country is restricting access?
It's not a good thing. Yes, Stefano.
Very fast is a follow-up. But if Brazil will not be able to send a delegation, because usually on the first day it's Brazil that speaks first. So what will happen?
The issue of how people address the General Assembly is up to member states and deciding on the speaking order as well. So these are hypotheticals I won't get into. Any questions online? Okay, thank you. I'm really late for my boss.